What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for PlayPicks.com. Going to take a look at DraftKings lineups here for week number 7. Some picks and plays and fades and all the different things like that. If you watched the video last week, super high on Jameis Winston, on Matt Ryan. Of course, they went off. If you had those guys in your lineups, you did pretty well, imagine, because if you had those guys in your lineups, you kind of had to have a certain lineup build, and most likely, so long as you weren't over exposed to Mike Evans, probably had a pretty good week. So looking to get this ball rolling here on week 7 and continue the momentum here. We got the Packers, Raiders, Steelers, and Seahawks all on bye this week. And then you've got the Titans, Chargers in London. That's not on the main slate. And then you have the Bengals, Chiefs on Sunday Night Football and the Giants, Falcons on Monday Night Football. So a lot of the teams and a lot of the players that we really like to play not going to be on the slate, so they're not here with us this week. So it's going to be a little bit tighter, only 10 games, as you see right here, only 10 games on the main slate. So a couple of fewer games than we're used to having, and we don't really like that. Millionaire Maker's back to $20 this week, 3.25 million. Play it if you want to, not really my cup of tea. Whenever we take a look at these tournaments here where first place is getting 30% of the money in the entire prize pool. Not really something that I'm big into. I've professed my love time and time again for the slant. It's back again this week. It is a tournament that I really dig, because when you take a look here, it's $500,000 guaranteed for a $9 buy-in and $50,000 to first. So 10% to first, and the min cash is a full 2x, as you see right there. So if you're playing these big these big, huge, large field tournaments or something like that, and you actually want to try to profit in these, I would suggest certainly something like the slant over, the Millionaire Maker or this play action or anything like that. It's just a much better tournament. Going down the lobby here, again, the tournaments that we really like to play each and every week. The single entry spy, $100 buy-in, $200,000 guaranteed, $30,000 to first. That's always a really good one. Really like to play that one. $12 single entry right here on this fair catch, $12, $150,000 guaranteed. Really like that one as well. Certainly think you guys should be playing any of these single entries that are in here. Nickel, 3 entry max, any of these lower entry max. And if your bankroll affords it, even this 3350, which is a 5 entry max, those tournaments just give you a little better chance of success when it comes to tournament play. And if you're not into it for that, then that's perfectly fine. You can play any of these tournaments if you're just looking to kind of bink and move on. So for the sake of this, we'll go ahead and click into my NFL slant here that I love so incredibly much. Taking a look at the quarterback position this week, Jared Goff, most expensive quarterback on the slate in a game that we like. I mean, it is a game that we'll talk about, the other end of the spectrum here when it comes to quarterback. But I mean, Rams favored by 9.5 in this one. We got a 52-point total in this game, so the scoring is expected to happen. There's supposed to be a lot of scoring in this game. I would never try to talk you off Jared Goff at 6,600. The only problem is, especially for cash games, salaries are tight and the pickings are slim. So you kind of need that extra money if you want to get to what I consider to probably be the optimal cash game build this week, which is getting a couple of expensive running backs in there. So I'm not going to have Jared Goff in cash. I'm certainly going to. He is on my list of 4 quarterbacks that I'm going to be playing this week, and I'll certainly have some tournament lineups with Jared Goff, pairing him up with a couple of his different receivers, and of course Todd Gurley. No interest in Cousins here at 64. I would just get up to Goff at 66. Jameis Winston, probably, listen, each and every week from here on out, probably has the ceiling of the number 1 quarterback on the slate, probably each and every week, because they don't have that great of a run game there, and they have really piss poor defense. And when that is the case, they're just going to constantly be either playing catch up or at least having to keep pace with the team that they're playing. So not really going to have a chance to squat on the ball very often this season. So Jameis Winston pretty much going to be in play. I'm not going to say every single week, but pretty close to it, depending on, as long as he's not playing one of these super elite defenses or something like that. Skipping down a little bit further, Cam Newton is one of the other guys that is on my list when it comes to quarterbacks this week. The thing about this game is you just can't run on the Philadelphia Eagles, and so Philly's given up just 79.8 yards on the ground each game. So they pretty much just make you throw against them. So Cam Newton at 5,900, going to be throwing a lot. Got back Greg Olsen, and granted, Greg Olsen's probably not 100%, but certainly one of his guys that he likes to fall back on. So definitely going to be looking here. I mean, Philly pass defense, 29th DVOA versus number 2 wideouts as well. So maybe one of the kind of ancillary wideout guys that you want to maybe pair him up with in one of these large field tournaments. Because again, you've got to kind of hit at least one of your plays needs to kind of strike dynamite there for you to be able to take one of those things down. So yeah, pretty interesting there with him. Baker Mayfield going back yet again. I'm going back. I know I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess, when it comes down to things. But when you look at this, I mean, both of the teams in this game, Cleveland and Tampa Bay, top 15 in pace of play. The Browns are actually second in pace of play. They're putting a ton of plays together each game. Two pretty tough matchups in a row for Baker Mayfield as well. So, I mean, this is one of those things where, Baltimore, probably the best defense in the league. Chargers defense really coming around. He still put up 21 and 14. I mean, certainly not lighting the world on fire, but really tough opponents. And now he gets this Tampa Bay defense that is the absolute worst pass defense in the league by basically every single statistic that you look up. I mean, almost every metric when you're looking at this. They're allowing 76.7% opponent completion percentage. 3/4 of the passes are getting completed against this defense. They've allowed every single quarterback they've played this year to throw for 300 yards. And they have the lowest adjusted sack rate of any team in the league right now. So I'm gonna have Baker Mayfield tournament lineups, and that's just kind of how it's gonna be in the game in my tournaments this week. As far as that's pretty much my quarterback player pool, but I wouldn't fault you if you think that maybe this New England Chicago game ends up in a sneaky shootout. You wanted to get some Trubisky in your life, go right ahead. Don't really hate going to Flacco either. And I might end up with a couple of Flacco teams at the end of it all because, again, New Orleans just been giving it up through the air to basically every quarterback that they played. Every quarterback's had at least, I think, 24 points against them so far this year. So Flacco's certainly a guy at 5,400 as well, right? I mean, he's super cheap. But the guy that I am going to roll with in cash this week, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is CJ Beathard. He's way down at 4,800, and you'll see whenever we talk about some of these other positions why we need the cash and why we need the savings. He's down at 4,800, but if you look, I mean, this guy just continues to go out there. Oh, they don't even have his full game log in here. This is the kind of respect he gets. He doesn't. What I can tell you about CJ Beathard is that he has put up 18 points, he's put up 22 points, and he's put up 19 points in the 3 games that he started. At 4,800 against a Rams team, and this kind of fits into that perfect game script and perfect scenario for us with these cheap quarterbacks. If you expect the Rams to play well, again, 9.5-point favorites, then the game script is going to flip to where San Francisco has to play catch up. They're not going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be throwing the ball, and they're going to throw the ball often. He might throw a couple of picks, but if he throws for 300 yards or close to it, get you a handful of rushing yards, a couple of touchdowns in there, he's going to smash that 4,800 salary. So this is kind of like the nut spot for one of these guys right here in a game where they are supposed to kind of get beat down, and he's going to have to throw the ball, and he's going to have to throw the ball a ton. So for me, Beathard is pretty much locked in right now as my cash game quarterback. So I mean, like, if you want me to go ahead and just click on him and stick him in there, we can. At the running back position, the other lock button really is Todd Gurley. I don't have to tell you why Todd Gurley's awesome. I'll just tell you Todd Gurley's awesome. Play him. Even at 9,800, it doesn't matter. You play him. And when you look at what we've got as options at running back for the rest of this week, you'll understand why it's such an even more just like slam dunk play. As we mentioned, all these teams that are either on buys or not on the main slate. Chargers not on the main slate, so we have no Melvin Gordon. There's no Steelers, so we have no Connor. There's no Bengals or Chiefs, so we don't have Hunt. We don't have Joe Mixon. There's no Giants. We don't have Saquon. So like there's very few. All these guys that we normally love to play are not on the main slate. So we have to take what we can get this week at the running back position. And so Gurley, just a slam dunk. And the other really slam dunk, I think, is going to be Ezekiel Elliott this week. I mean, Alvin Kamara, if you want to play Kamara in tournaments, and I'm going to do that because I think it'll be the first time you have Alvin Kamara at, 3% ownership maybe, after he kind of dudded out last week and he stayed at 8,500 and he's playing against the best defense in the league. 3%, 6%, whatever, sub 10 for sure, for one of the most explosive running backs in the league. Tournament play for sure, could not do it for cash in the least bit. So Ezekiel Elliott's going to be the next guy that I kind of throw in there, and then we'll see how this starts to kind of put your team together and how the build goes, because once you put those three guys, even with Beathard only being 4,800, you have these two guys in your cash lineup at 98 and 81, and you're left at 45.50 per slot to fill out the rest of your lineup. We don't have a wide receiver in here yet, even. So that's the kind of week we're looking at, and we'll kind of explain, I'll try to explain why here. When you look, I mean, Christian McCaffrey going up against Philadelphia, we talked about that with Cam. You can't run on this team. So Christian McCaffrey's kind of out of my even player pool really this week, especially at 7,700. He's just too expensive. I don't think the ceiling is there. James White up at 6,900 is just absurdly too expensive, especially when you consider that, I mean, if they happen to get down towards the goal, I mean, we know that's going to be Sony Michel. We've seen that basically over the last few weeks. So not going to go there. TJ Yeldon, questionable. Leonard Fournette, questionable. Leonard Fournette expected not to play, but again, I guess this is something we can kind of hash out a little bit closer to Sunday, but don't really have a ton of interest there, especially even if it is TJ Yeldon and if he's nicked up a little bit. Certainly nothing I want to be a part of. We already mentioned Baltimore, one of the very best defenses in all of the league. And just to kind of drive home here, just so that you're not just taking my word for it, if you want something, their fifth DVOA against the pass, their third DVOA against the rush. So even though Mark Ingram's down at 5,900, just not something that I'm going to be going after this week. When you get into this range right here, LeSean McCoy, and this sounds really crazy, but LeSean McCoy is kind of a guy that I'm looking at. I've toyed around with some cash builds with him in it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'm not real sure, but he's at least in consideration here. Down at 5,600, and I mean, this is really what we're kind of going for here, is just the volume, right? I mean, like, this is what we're kind of looking for here with him. Down at 5,600 with the slim pickings. We have 24 rush attempts, 16 rush attempts. We got a handful of targets there at 3. We got another 5 targets there. We just don't have a lot to pick from this week, and so he is certainly in the pool here, and it doesn't hurt he's up against Indianapolis's defense either. So LeSean McCoy, even with Derek Anderson starting for the Buffalo Bills, yeah, Derek Anderson, I know. If you're sitting here saying, like, no, that guy's not in the league, and I can assure you he is in the league. I was blown away as well. So pretty interesting stuff right there. Jordan Howard losing too many snaps to Tarik Cohen, so not really into him. Tarik Cohen is fairly interesting, especially in tournaments. I can't go there in cash just because he doesn't get enough carries. You can see whenever we kind of start to break things down. I mean, the 13 was definitely an aberration, not the norm. It's more the 4, 5-ish, 6-ish carries that he gets, but used so incredibly heavily in the pass game. Down at 5,100, I think he's certainly going to be in my tournament mix because I can't build every lineup around Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott and throw a bunch of, I'm not going to say trash receivers, but low dollar receivers in there. It's just not going to work out for every single tournament lineup. So certainly going to mix in some Tarik Cohen and have him in there just for the upside and things like that. Coming down a little bit further, you can look at Carlos Hyde if you want to. Really, I just don't know. What you're banking on Carlos Hyde is this game becomes a shootout, and in that shootout, he's able to get, score you maybe a couple of short yardage touchdowns or something like that, because Tampa Bay's run defense is actually fairly stout. It is just the pass defense that is putrid. And so if Cleveland chooses to go past the path of least resistance, then they should go through the air. But he's down at 4,700, so again, not going to kill you if he doesn't have a monster day. So again, has to be in play here. I don't know what to make of this Philadelphia running back situation. Hopefully, maybe there'll be some clarity for some beat writers between now and Sunday as to how they think that the split is going to go between Clement and Smallwood. So that maybe you would put one of them in the pool, but not in there for now. I do have Kerryon Johnson in my pool. They're coming off of a bye here. Hopefully they took a look and maybe they just decided, over that bye that he's an actually, fairly talented dude and they drafted him for a reason and they really don't need to give all these carries to LeGarrette Blount, but maybe not. Also, one of the things to look at in that one is Theo Riddick is questionable. If he were to be out, that would really boost Kerryon Johnson to me because now he becomes that pass catching back as well. So even if LeGarrette Blount does steal the carries, he's at least getting the pass work, which has been going to Theo Riddick. So keep an eye on that between now and Sunday as well. As we kind of get down here into the dumpster a little bit further, one of the other guys, and this is kind of a guy that has helped me get to a cash game that I really can stomach, is Payton Barber. And I know that sounds nuts, but I mean, listen, the Browns actually have Pro Football Focus's, worst ranked run defense up until now. Payton Barber only, 3,800 coming off of a week where he got, 13 carries and 4 receptions. So if we can get 15 touches out of him, I mean, whether that be 12 carries and 3 receptions or even just, whatever, even all rushing attempts, maybe one reception or something like that against this Browns rush defense at only 3,800, maybe he trips and falls into the end zone, then we're going to be in shape here. And again, this is just, as you can tell, I mean, we just ran through this running back position and it's garbage. So not a lot to get excited about this week at the running back position. So if you were to throw Elliott into your cash game and if you wanted to kind of roll the dice and open some things up for you at the other positions and you wanted to go this whole Payton Barber thing against what is at least graded to this point the worst rush defense in the league, you throw him in there and now you're looking at like 4,700 per slot left for all three, your wide receivers, your defense, and your tight end. Now, of course, we're not going to play a 4,700 defense, so let's come down here and say that we're going to play, let's say we're going to play the Browns against, let's say we're going to play the Buck. No, let's go Bills. Bills against, listen, the Bills defense has actually been playing fairly well. We know that Indianapolis puts the ball in the air tons, and so it's really all we can ask for is like opportunities for interceptions, opportunities for strip sacks and things like that. Like Indianapolis isn't going to all of a sudden go rush heavy. That's not going to happen. Andrew Luck's going to continue dropping back and throwing, 40 plus passes a game. So let's throw those guys in there. So now you're looking like 5,300 per position. If that were to be kind of like the beginning of your cash game build, if you wanted to do something like that. Over to the wide receiver position, taking a look here. I mean, Adam Thielen, of course, is the top of the list. This guy has got 100 yards every single game so far this season. He has, as a matter of fact, he has at least 6 catches and 100 yards in every single game this season. So that's just a minimum of 19 points right there every single game this season. So he is definitely at the top of the list. Good luck if you can get him into your cash games. Now, if you want to avoid the too expensive running back thing, then you can definitely get him in there. I just feel like on a week like this where running back is so incredibly thin, probably the optimal build is to go with 2 guys like Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott that have no competition for touches, have no competition for goal line work, are going to be in there even on passing downs, like every single thing about these guys where we're missing some of those other guys that fill that role. We're missing the Melvin Gordons, we're missing the Joe Mixons, we're missing, those guys like that, the Saquon Barkleys that don't leave the field either. We don't have those guys to choose from. So to get that with those 2 guys is really like the only 2 guys we can get that from this week. So anyway, that's where I'm going. But if you wanted to go Adam Thielen, I'm certainly not going to fault you. I mean, the guy's it's just been unbelievable. I mean, every single friggin' game. I mean, I'm going to have tournament exposure for sure. But I mean, it's just absurd what's going on here with him each and every single week with over 100 yards and just this ridiculous amount of targets and catches. But they finally got his price where it needs to be, and at 8,600, it's just it's near impossible. If you wanted to see what that kind of looks like when you throw Zeke in there and then you throw Thielen in there, and now you're looking, real thin, 3,700 per position. That's even if we put one of these dirt cheap defenses in there. We throw the Bills back in there, you're still looking just at 4,100 for 4 other positions. So you'd have to really, really love some of those super cheap guys this week if that's the way that you want to go. Not going to fault you if that's the way you want to go, because again, Thielen's probably going to get 100 yards. He's probably going to get 6+ catches. He is incredibly likely to get in the end zone as well. So really nothing negative to say about him other than just the price. Michael Thomas, going to be off him this week against Baltimore. I think that game goes way under the total. New Orleans, I really have a lot of respect for this Baltimore defense. And New Orleans on the road, playing outdoors, historically has been a worse team. Ted Ginn went on the IR, so they lost that. I mean, they do have the rookie Traquan Smith who can, stress the defense and whatnot, but, that's really why they had Ted Ginn. They put him out there. He runs fly patterns, opens things up for the rest of the guys, and that's just not, he's not going to be there anymore. He's on IR. So probably going to wait a week. Hopefully Mike Thomas has just an okay average game, and I just bounce right back on him at lower ownership next week. The Mike Evans against Cleveland, sure. I think this is a kind of a sneaky shootout game right here. I think he will be more part of game stacks for me than anything else. Same deal, obviously with Jarvis Landry. Too expensive for cash games. 73 is just too expensive for cash games for Jarvis Landry for me. So be in tournament stuff like that. Stephon Diggs is probably an amazing tournament pivot off of Thielen. I think if people want to play one of these two guys, they're going to figure out a way to try to get to Thielen. And really, if you look at Diggs, it's been a bummer for him, right? Actually, last week, you look and Patrick Peterson actually shadowed him for about 60% of the routes that he ran. So, Patrick Peterson is amazing. He's awesome, right? So I think this is a really great spot to kind of jump back on Stephon Diggs after a very mediocre 3-catch on 4-target, 33-yard performance against one of the better cornerbacks in all the NFL. And, so Patrick Peterson shut him down. Patrick Peterson shuts down a lot of people. So I think this is an interesting spot in tournaments to get back on Diggs here. So the one expensive wide receiver I have been toying around with my cash lineups is Robert Woods. Robert Woods is way down at 7,000, which I think is a pretty good value here because we know that Cooper Kupp has been ruled out for the Los Angeles Rams. So with Cooper Kupp out, we understand what a valuable red zone guy he is. I mean, Jared Goff looks to him in the red zone so often, and those targets are going to go to somebody else, and that is probably going to be Robert Woods. Robert Woods is probably going to move inside and now play the slot. They'll bring Josh Reynolds in to run on the outside. So it's just additional work and even higher catch probability work for Robert Woods. And you see he's already smashing anyway as it is right now, right? I mean, got in the last 4 games, 2 double-digit target games. Even the ones where he didn't, he's turning that into 100 yards, 92 yards. He's turning it into touchdowns. Get those weird rushing attempts every now and then on those jet sweeps and reverses and things. And this should just be, more valuable targets heading his way in this game, kind of playing that Cooper Kupp role. So he's a guy that I've been toying around with in these kind of initial cash game builds. And you can see with 4,500 left, it doesn't totally just break the bank with these last few positions here. So certainly a guy I'm looking at there is Robert Woods at 7K. A little bit further down, Alshon Jeffrey's in my tournament pool. Just the fact that he's been seeing so many red zone looks. I mean, he is kind of like the guy that Wentz looks to when he gets in the end zone these days. So really like me some Alshon Jeffrey as far as tournaments and stuff go. Coming down a little bit further here, Josh Gordon is only 5,600. If we think that this New England Chicago game could actually turn into kind of a sneaky shootout, Josh Gordon actually ran the same amount of routes last week as Julian Edelman did. Tom Brady dropped back 41 times. Josh Gordon ran routes on 39 of those. 39 of those dropbacks. So you might look at raw snap counts. It's oh well, he's still only it. But really, every time he's on the field, he's running routes, right? I mean, he's on the field for the important snaps anyway. When it's stuff like that, they don't have him out there run blocking or whatever, so that doesn't really matter to us, right? Michael Crabtree, a guy that may or may not kind of fit into that whole cash game deal as well. Crabtree's not that guy that like is sexy to click on. You don't feel great about it. You don't love clicking on Michael Crabtree's numbers, but like for a cash game lineup where literally you're just looking for that good floor that does have a little bit of upside, I mean, it's kind of hard to get past what he does. I mean, 10, 8, 12, 9 targets. I mean, it is just, he gets targets from Flacco. He turns it into decent yardage. He's not the breakaway guy, so he's not going to see these, 6 catches or these 7 catches turn into, 140. That's not really his deal. You're looking for the high catch rate. You're looking for that pretty decent yardage, and you're hoping that maybe one of those is a touchdown, and then you do get that 20-point day out of Michael Crabtree. Again, in a situation at home against a poor New Orleans pass defense, is in the mix for me as far as cash games go. Taylor Gabriel, 4,700 with Chicago. Again, I think that this game may end up being fairly high scoring. I think New England has the type of offense and certainly can scheme to score points against Chicago, which means Chicago is going to have to score points as well. And Taylor Gabriel's really moved into the kind of go-to number 2 role there behind Allen Robinson. And at 4,700, just really like that price. And again, we need the savings this week. Like we keep emphasizing how kind of thin it is. And we really need guys like that. Like we need guys that are getting the targets that fall in this range as far as price goes. So certainly like him here. If you're playing that stack, if you're playing that game stack, like I mentioned, the Tampa Bay Cleveland game stack, then by all means get Chris Godwin in there. He should certainly be worked in. He's not running a ton of routes, but when he does, Jameis seems to look his way, and he's certainly the type of guy that can get stuff done and blow it off, blow the top off of things. If you're playing Beathard in tournaments outside of cash, I don't mind throwing Marquise Goodwin as the pairing with him in that. As you saw, like Marquise Goodwin was getting just basically all the air yards. I mean, they were just bombing passes up to this dude. And, in these big tournaments, that's what you love, especially with a guy that's an Olympic sprinter like Godwin is. So he can get behind a defense and catch 2 of these bombs. Even if he only catches 4 or 5 passes in the game, one of them might go for 60 yards and a touchdown. The other one go for 45 yards and a touchdown or something like that. So he's kind of a tournament upside, tournament winning upside type play. And, if you're playing Beathard, in a tournament, you're going to need to pair him with someone because you're hoping that one of those receivers goes off or something like that. And Goodwin is certainly as good of a guy as any. Looking here at my list. Oh yeah, a couple of other guys I do want to bring up here. Again, we're looking for value this week. We're looking for guys that we can fill in some lineups, in some tournament lineups. Again, Antonio Callaway kind of sucks. Just drops way too many passes, and the problem for Cleveland is they just don't have anyone else that can play. So he's going to have to play. So he's going to be on the field, and he's going to continue getting these targets, and Baker Mayfield is going to continue hucking the ball up to him. I mean, he's dropped. I mean, here's the thing. We'd be talking about how awesome this guy is if he caught 3 of these bombs that he's dropped. I mean, and instead he's dropped them, and that's why we're kind of like, he kind of sucks. But if he had caught 2 of these 50-yard bombs for touchdowns, then we'd be like, oh man, this is that guy. Like, take the top off the defense and all the different things like that. Instead, we're sitting here talking about him kind of sucking, which, again, he does. But I think he has to be in your tournament pool, especially if you're playing Baker Mayfield in some tournament lineups. You're going to have to pair him with someone, and I think that Callaway down at 4,300, certainly someone you could look to. And Jermaine Kearse is another guy down here, 4,100. We have Quincy Enunwa going to be out for a few weeks. So with Quincy Enunwa out, we know how productive he was in the first few weeks of the season. Jermaine Kearse moved right into that role. And when he moved right into that role, he saw 10 targets and caught 9 of them for 94 yards, got you 18 DraftKings points. So slot role for Jermaine Kearse here is pretty big. And how do you attack this Minnesota defense? You certainly don't do it on the outside. You do it in the slot, out of the slot. And I think Jermaine Kearse is a pretty heavy cash consideration, maybe, depending on how your lineup build goes, maybe even a GPP consideration as well. And finally, I know 2 more guys we're going to hit. Willie Snead here, at home in a game that, again, against a poor New Orleans pass defense, is kind of the same thing as we were talking about with Michael Crabtree, except with Snead, he's $1,100 cheaper, way down at 4K, and he still continues to see target volume, as you can see. Not one of those guys to break it off, right? I mean, he catches it, he's going to get you, he's averaged 8.6 yards, like on 7 catches, 11, 9. I mean, he's not going to be that guy that has one of those monster days, but at 4K, can he get you 7 catches? Well, we know he can because he's already done it so far this year. Can we get lucky and maybe he averages, 12 yards a catch? So like maybe he's getting closer to kind of that 100-yard mark, maybe something along those lines. I mean, that's kind of what we're hoping with Willie Snead here. But again, way down at 4,000 where there's not a lot, in a week where there's not a lot of value. DJ Moore, we mentioned about Philadelphia being bad against the number 2 wide receiver. So if you wanted to pair him with Cam, go right ahead at 3,900. And finally, we mentioned that spot with Cooper Kupp going on, going to be out for a few weeks. So it's going to be Josh Reynolds here. Josh Reynolds way down at 3,500. So a guy that you can fill in, especially if you want to pair him. Maybe you want to pair him up with Goff. Maybe you want to have him as part of a 3 or 4 person stack, even if you think that the Rams are just going to go absolutely ham in this game. But way down at 3,500 for a guy that an offense in the Rams that runs 3 wide sets so incredibly often. So, I mean, he's going to be on the field. Now, how much does Goff trust him? Don't know. We can see. Certainly is going to like, Cooks and Woods better, but he's going to be on the field a lot, and he's 3,500. So it doesn't take much for him to get you where you need to be this week. At the tight end position, even fewer. I'm never going to talk you off Zach Ertz, but man, find 7,100 for a tight end this week. Good luck. It's real tough. That being said, if you do that, you are going to have a unique lineup this week because there's just not a lot of lineup builds that allow you to get to a $7,100 tight end. So if you do that, just know you'll have a unique lineup for sure. Gronk comes in at just 6,000, but really just Gronk's usage hasn't been there so far this year. Maybe this is the breakout game, maybe this is the game where they finally get him going or something like that. But, even at 6,000 for what he's getting so far, I can't go there. I mean, it's weird to say that Eric Ebron is getting, is far more useful right now than Rob Gronkowski is. But I mean, Eric Ebron just continues to get blasted with targets, 11, 10, 15, 7. He continues to get the yardage totals. He continues to catch touchdowns. And even though that price has gotten up to 5,400, he won't be in any of my cash games. He's certainly a guy that is in your your tournament pool, something like that. Down a little bit further as far as my very narrow tight end pool for me this week. David Njoku, again, I think this Cleveland-Tampa Bay game, I've said it a million times, I think it has the ability to really shoot out here. I think, we could see 55, 60, 65 points scored in this game. And then Njoku's just too cheap, right? At 4,200. And since Baker Mayfield came in and started starting, 7 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets, like he just loves looking his way. And at 4,200 for this week in tight ends, it's just, for me, probably going to be my cash game tight end as things sit, here on Thursday night that we're recording this. OJ Howard, another guy that's in my pool here for the same reason with Njoku, just, talented guy, cheap in a game that I think could shoot out and score a lot of points. So I like him down here as well. And if you want just an incredible total punt, probably won't see me with many of those lineups, but Jacksonville just has no tight ends left except for James O'Shaughnessy. He is the last guy standing. I mean, they have had to put everyone on IR. So he's here, last guy there, and he's 2,600. He's getting a handful of targets, I mean, they're 6 and 4 in the last couple of weeks, 10 targets over the last couple of weeks. But again, if you need to just absolutely punt and pray that maybe he has 3 for 30 and a touchdown, 3 for 30 and a touchdown and get you there, right? So he's a guy there at only 2,600. On the defensive side of things, never going to argue against the Jaguars against Houston. Deshaun Watson just holds onto the ball way too long. Always makes some ill-advised passes just about every single game. So he's good for a few sacks and a pick just about. in just about every single game that you can go up against him here. Down a little bit further, Eagles, kind of same deal with what the reason I'm looking at them is with Cam. Like Cam, just when you're these athletic type quarterbacks, you always think you can make a play happen. So Cam ends up holding on to the ball sometimes a little bit too long, takes a bunch of sacks. Sometimes tries to, throw the ball while he's getting sacked and makes an ill-advised pass and it gets picked off or something like that. So that's kind of really what we're looking for with these defenses anyway. Of course, defensive scores we can't predict. So it's kind of like, it's you're trying to get in a scenario where they at least have an opportunity to do that. Down a little bit further, Jameis, we've seen Jameis gets careless at times. So Cleveland defense certainly in play there. On the flip side, Buccaneers defense, even as bad as they are, you can give up points as long as you get turnovers and you get sacks. And we've seen Baker Mayfield take sacks. We've seen Baker Mayfield throw some pretty bad picks so far this year. So even if Baker has a great day, Tampa Bay can still have a great day as well. Maybe a strip sack for a touchdown, maybe a pick six, maybe they sack him 4 or 5 times and he throws a couple of picks. So in between scoring touchdowns. So just know that it's not like the craziest thing in the world for Baker to still have a good day and the Bucs still have a good day. And then a little bit further, down, I think I mentioned, the Bills. We already got them over here. I mean, the thing is, Andrew Luck just is throwing so often. So the ball's always in the air. He's always dropping back. So if he's dropping back so many times a game, that just gives you so many more opportunities for sacks and so many more opportunities for interceptions and things like that. It's not that, and the Bills defense is actually pretty good. It's not that I think that they're super awesome or anything, but look, they're 2,300 against a guy that's probably going to put it in the air 40 plus times. So, or at least drop back 40 plus times. So that's kind of what we look for whenever in these defenses and things like that. So anyway, guys, appreciate you watching the video. Hope you have a really good week this week. We are going to likely be rolling with CJ Beathard in cash games, but again, like, can't say enough how important I think it is this week to basically just kind of lock in the Gurley Elliott thing here, because when we look at the rest of these running backs, Kamara, nothing certain. McCaffrey up against a super stout rush defense in Philadelphia. White, way too expensive for a guy that's, not even the touchdown scorer there for this team. Question marks with Yeldon and Fournette. Ingram against a very tough Baltimore team. It's just so many things, like, until you get way down here to LeSean McCoy, and again, an offense that may or may not be able to even score. Buffalo with Derek Anderson at quarterback, who the hell knows what's going to go on there. So, it seems to me there's really only 2 guys you can feel super good about clicking on this week, and it's those guys. And once you do that, you see, you kind of saw as we start to put together at least a shell lineup that pretty slim pickings after you get those guys in here. So you got to be pretty economical with the rest of your positions. So kind of going like super cheap defense, one of those tight ends, it's going to be probably Njoku, but I wouldn't hate it if you went down even lower, maybe an OJ Howard or something like that. So, it's going to be an interesting week. Week 7 in the NFL is already here. I can't believe we're almost halfway through this. This is crazy. While you're here, guys, please click that little subscribe button down below. Really appreciate all the subscribers here. And maybe even some benefit of being a subscriber here pretty soon. Might even put together some giveaways and stuff like that. So might as well just go ahead and subscribe, and then you'll already be a subscriber. And then once you're a subscriber, then we'll start doing some giveaways for you guys out there. And if you live in and or around the New Jersey area, you're looking for some sportsbook bonus codes, even some free money offers, playpicks.com/bonus, BONUS, and you can see all of our sportsbook offers as well as our DFS offers and everything that we have going on there as well. So be sure and do that. Some of the best things, absolute very best things on the internet when it comes to the offers. All right, guys, we'll see you guys back here for week 8.